Jacksonville is where I couldn't be yesterday, but it's where we're going next. Georgia 34, Florida 7. You look at the score, and what do you think? So I'll tell you what I think. I think there's a lot more to a football game than a final score, but yet that's stupid because you play to win the game. Herm told us that a generation ago, and it's still true today. This is where you have to have a little bit of nuance and a little bit of context work its way into the conversation. So Georgia beat Florida 34-7. There are several ways that you could arrive at a final score that looks like that. One of them is offensive domination and situational football defensively. Another one is just flat-out dominant defense. A third one is a turnover fest that you come out on the better end of. The point is, it doesn't matter in the past. 34-7 is 34-7. But that's not what the conversation's about today. If you've been around any of your Georgia buddies, if you've been around really any kind of message board, Twitter and the like, no one's talking about whether Georgia can beat Florida. We already saw that they could. People want to know if Georgia can win a national championship. And so the questions that are being asked are not, is Georgia better than Florida? Do you really think their 4 touchdowns better than Florida? No one cares. Not even Georgia fans are talking about that. What they're asking is, number one, what did we learn yesterday? Number two, what did this change, if anything? Well, I don't know what we learned, but it certainly didn't change anything in my mind. I don't feel a way about Georgia that I didn't already feel. I think what surprised me the most after going back and watching this game is how much surprise there really was from other people. I don't really get why we're surprised. Let me give you a little cheat sheet on football. If you have a game and 73% of the points scored in that game are off turnovers, which is exactly what happened yesterday, 30 of the 41 points, I think, were off turnovers, you probably are not learning a whole lot as it relates to the future based on that result. It's a standalone result. So what happened yesterday? Standalone in nature. You got just what you got. You see it on the screen there, or you're listening to me, a 28-point win over Florida in a rivalry game is what you got. And that's really all it is to me. Now, I know we can't do that. I know a lot of people don't want to do that. So the one thing that surprised me was being able to get the reaction before I watched the game, and it was pouring in on the eye, Josh. And I had everything from Kirby's getting out coached again to Florida's terrible to look at that, it's inevitable, it was only a matter of time, and I'm looking at all this and I'm not being able to see the game or hear the game myself. And so I have to imagine that this is just a seesaw fair of ugliness. And then when I found out it was 3-0 near the half, and of course I've gone back and watched the game since, but when I'm finding out real time that that's what happened, I'm going and checking one thing, and you know what it was. I'm going to check JT Daniels' stat line, and there isn't one. That's what surprised me. JT Daniels did not play in this game. You want to know about surprise? That was surprise. I'll come back to that in just a second. This whole thing about Georgia began a few weeks ago. A lot of people were surprised yesterday that this was close near the half and that Georgia offensively didn't really do a whole lot. And they didn't necessarily just drown Florida. They didn't outman them to the degree that you thought they would. And that's not Georgia's fault. That is your fault. And I'm not talking to any person in particular because it makes me sound mean. I'm not doing that. But I tried to sit in this chair, and I tried to tell you a few weeks ago, do not fall victim to what's happening. And what happened is once Bama lost to A&M, a lot of people tried at least, to start convincing you that there's a huge gap between Georgia and everyone else. There is not a huge gap between Georgia and everyone else. There's a gap between Georgia and probably the 4th best team and beyond. But you put Ohio State or Alabama on a field with them, there's not a big gap. It's not a gap at all. It doesn't win-loss records independent. Okay, we're talking about a game that would happen in the future. I put Bama on the field with Georgia Saturday, or it may happen in Atlanta about a month from now. There's no huge gap. But that didn't stop the casuals out there from telling you there was. That didn't stop the casuals from telling you they're heads and shoulders better than anyone else in the country. And that meant expectations got falsely elevated to a level that current Georgia team, the one you saw yesterday, they're not going to match. This is not 2019 LSU or 2020 Alabama. That's not what you have here. You have a rock-solid defensive team with flaws and deficiencies elsewhere, just the same as Alabama has, just the same as Ohio State has. It's just they have different flaws, and so they have a standout unit. That defense is standout. But they're not unbeatable just like anyone else. I keep getting this, And I keep trying to respond, and I keep trying to respond in different versions of the same reaction. It's great. They are the number one team in the country. I've got them rated the number one team in the country. I don't disagree with that. I think my disagreement comes when someone tries to tell me Georgia's the best team in the country, and then there's a significant margin, significant gap between them and Bama or them and Ohio State. I haven't seen it that way. Hey, I could be wrong, but I haven't seen it that way. So Stetson Bennett plays this whole game at quarterback for Georgia. I am convinced that there is more than meets the eye here. Because last week, I had it on pretty good word we were going to see JT Daniels in this game, and I'm not the only one. Some people very close to that team had it on good authority that at the very least we were going to see two quarterbacks. I thought we'd end up seeing Daniels take a majority of the snaps, and instead we didn't see it at all, which has convinced me that he's not 100% healthy or 90% healthy. He is not at a level that they feel good enough putting him on the field for. I'm going to choose to believe that, because if the alternative is true, then I'm telling you point blank, it's a borderline dereliction of duty on Kirby Smart and Todd Monken's part. So you're not going to convince me that they have looked at things, assessed the situation, and said, we're going to put our second best quarterback on the field. Because I do not believe, with both of them at or near full health, that Stetson Bennett is the best quarterback on that team. So here come the caveats, which we always have to do. We had to make a habit out of doing this last year. It was earlier in the season, but we got ourselves in this same predicament last year. I cannot believe we're debating this again. We got ourselves in the same predicament last year. Georgia looked very good against some inferior competition early in the year. Stetson Bennett was doing enough for you to win, and I dared to sit at the other studio in Brentwood and said, Stetson Bennett's probably good enough to win you 9 or 10 games. This year, he's good enough to win you probably 12 games because it is complementary and he's got that defense to work with, but he's not good enough to win a national championship, which you guys are telling me is your goal. You're filling in that blank. I'm not the one trying to paint your picture of expectation for you. We're there again. We're there again. Same situation now. The only difference is Georgia personnel-wise is a little bit better than they were last year, but we're at the same situation. So here are the caveats. The caveats are, I wish we had a million Stetson Bennett's in college football. His story is a testament. His story is great. He is a great person. You will not find anyone to speak ill of him. I'm not speaking ill of him. This is high-level competition. All I'm telling you is that guy, Stetson Bennett, as much as I love him, and he'd probably make a great co-host to the show if we had him here, and he's playing good football for Georgia, is not going to play great football for Georgia. And that's the only problem there is. If you're happy with good, if you're happy with good enough, then that is enough. I am simply responding to Georgia folks who tell me their goal is to win a national championship. I'm telling you, if that's your goal, you're not going to win one with Stetson Bennett. That's all I'm telling you. Even this year, you're not going to win one with Stetson Bennett. And I think, or I have to believe, that Kirby Smart and Todd Monken know that. And if JT Daniels was fully ready to play, and they were confident in his health status holding up, I think he'd be in the game. I'm choosing to believe that because the alternative is something that I'm not going to choose to believe. There's no way I'm going to choose to believe that they're looking at both of those guys fully healthy and saying, he's the one we're rolling with because he's the one that's going to give us the best shot to win everything that we want to win. Now, there is another game potentially in play right here. And I think there's some validity to this. There are some folks out there that buy into the school of thought that Kirby Smart, Todd Monken, and company up there, they've looked and they've said, Florida's not going to beat us. No one is capable, really. If we play the level of ball that we play defensively, no one is going to be in the realm of being able to beat us until SEC championship game. And so, how about we get through the Florida game, and then we'll start to ease JT Daniels in, and then we'll have him ready to go for the SEC championship game. Look, is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. I think that sounds a lot more water cooler-ish, a lot more Xbox-ish than what really happens in a coach's room and how football programs really run. But I guess it could be that that's what's happening right now. But in my gut, I'm telling you, I believe there's a little bit still holding JT Daniels back. And what it could be is it could be as simple as team doctors telling Kirby Smart, look, you got a guy that I'm going to medically clear right now, but this is fragile. This lat muscle, which is what he was struggling with rehabbing, that thing could pop up and flare back up at any minute. And I'm telling you, I'm the doctor now talking, I'm telling you, if you have it flare up again, he's done. Because then we got to start this whole process over, and it's going to be fill in the blank weeks to fill in the blank weeks, and you're probably not going to have him. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that could happen. But outside of that, like I've got some folks who are telling me, independent of JT Daniels' health status, Stetson Bennett's the guy. And I'm just stunned that we're still debating this. Stunned that we are, after last year, debating this yet again. Stetson Bennett's a very good quarterback. Let me give you another cheat sheet. Second cheat sheet of the night on the show. Your best quarterback always gives you the best chance to win. Playing the best quarterback always gives you the best chance to win long term. So if that's what we're trying to do, and I believe that's what JT Daniels is when he is at or near full health, then that's what we need to do there. I'm not going to question it because Kirby Smart knows more about the situation than I do. I'm going to choose to believe there is more there than meets my eye. Because if there's not, that's not a good situation at Georgia currently. But that's not the best thing Kirby Smart did yesterday. They won the game, yes. Kirby Smart gets in his post-game press conference, and if I didn't know better, I would say that there should have been a lead. I'm going to play some sound for you in a second. But to me, even though there wasn't, there should have been a lead on this, like there is with a political action committee's campaign commercial during election season. And it should have sounded something like, the following message has been approved and paid for by Florida Gator fans. Here was the sound yesterday in Kirby Smart's postgame press conference. Sounds eerily reminiscent of a show that we did here on Late Kick just last week. Take a listen.
I mean, guys, if you don't recruit, there's no coach out there that can out-coach recruiting, okay? I don't care who you are. The best coach to ever play the game better be a good recruiter because no coaching is going to out-coach players. I mean, anybody will tell you our defense is good because they got good players. So spending time on the phone, spending time with people at your house, spending time with people when they come to your campus. I'm not with my family when I'm doing that. My family sacrifices so that I can go and spend time with other people's families so that we have good players. So, that's 25% evaluation. That's 50% recruiting. And another 25% is going to be coaching. But if you don't recruit, guys, you got no chance. Just go look. Look at the best teams out there. They got good football players. And that's the reason I believe in recruiting. And I believe you better always be recruiting. Always be recruiting. Because if you're not, somebody else is.
That's the story. I mean, that's really the long and short of it at Florida right now. There were parts of the game yesterday that were okay. There were parts of the strategic approach and the game plan and the coaching yesterday that looked okay for Florida. And yet you've got a guy over there who can afford to get himself into this kind of situation with his quarterback room, and it's 3-0 near the half, and you are sitting there, I know because some of you texted me, you're sitting there thinking in the first half, oh, he's getting out-coached again. Georgia fans, a majority of them are not even happy with how they played yesterday, and they beat you by 4 touchdowns. Why? Because they got better players than you. So many people make this stuff so difficult. And it's true, what those guys are doing would make most people's heads spin. But here's what he's telling you. What he is, Kirby Smart, telling you is, I could draw things on a grease board all day long. I could scheme you all day long. It goes back to the old metaphor we used last week. If you're driving a station wagon and I'm driving the monster truck, you could be the smartest person in the world. You are done once I learn how to turn the ignition. Once I learn to crank the monster truck up, you're done. Because you're in a station wagon and I'm in the monster truck. Kirby Smart, his roster is a monster truck. You cannot scheme your way around it. It doesn't have to go around you. It goes over you. And then that's the end. And they walk away saying, oh, we got to clean some stuff up. But we did just beat you by 4 touchdowns. That's where Florida football is right now. I know there's some whispers out there that maybe some changes are coming. You'll have to convince me that one of those is going to be head coach because I, at the moment, don't believe that. Everything else is up for grabs. I think everything else is up in the air.